Hey there, welcome to SQSR. Today we're going to answer, is strawberry wine actually wine? What makes wine wine? The question, or questions, sound simple, so let's take a look at the response. If you're old enough to remember Y2K, you're probably already thinking about the Deanna Carter song, written by Matresa Berg and Gary Harrison. Well, we will look at what wine is, what strawberry wine is, and we'll finish up talking about the beverage behind the song. We'll start by looking at how Zinfandel is made. Whether or not it's a beverage you consume, I think we can safely say it's a wine. Zinfandel comes unsurprisingly from Zinfandel grapes, a variety of Vitis vinifera. Vocabulary lesson of the day. The kind of grape is a variety. The wine made from that kind of grape is a varietal. Once the grapes get harvested, we need to juice them. Well, sort of. For white wine, we would more or less just juice them, but we're making Zinfandel, so instead we must them. At least we're making must, so I assume the verb is to must. What's must, you ask? It's the juice, plus however much skin, seeds, and stems you want to be involved in the fermenting process. Red wine's tannins and color come from the skin of the grape. White wines want to avoid that. Want a rosé? We'll use a red wine grape, but filter out the solids at this stage. Sorry, I'm getting off track. Juicing, or rather musting, the wine was traditionally done by putting all of the grapes in a vessel with a hole to let the juice out, taking off your footwear, and going for a walk. I assume a foot washing is involved at some point, but I've never juiced wine. Wineries, who fear athlete's foot-infused wine more than they hate breaking with tradition, instead use machines. There are probably other reasons to use the machines. So, you now have a big ol' vat of must. Pour in some yeast, and you have started the process of fermentation. The yeast eats the sugars in the juice, turning them into mostly ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. For our Zinfandel, we'll be letting the yeast do their thing for a week, maybe two. Whites generally run about a week longer. Once fermentation is over, we have wine. If we took what's in the vat, put it in a sealed container, after optionally adding more yeast and or sugar, and let it ferment even more, we'd get a sparkling wine. We won't, of course, because we're making Zinfandel, remember? While a lot of the yeast ended up in a clump called the lees, there's still a bit floating in the wine, causing it to be a bit cloudy. We also have all of the non-juice parts of the must to get rid of. So filter out all the big stuff and as much little stuff as you can, then add so-called fining agents to give the microscopic cloudy bits something to stick to. Have you ever heard of vegan wines implying that some wines aren't vegan? Well, two common fining agents are albumin, aka egg whites, and gelatin, which comes from hair and such. Do some more filtering to get rid of your fining agents. Pour the remaining liquid in a bottle, add some nitrogen gas to push out all the oxygen, seal the bottle, slap a label on it, pay the tax man, and you can now sell this as a bottle of wine. For sparkling wine, the nitrogen gas may also have some carbon dioxide in it, but only enough to stop the CO2 in the liquid from coming out. Any other variety of Vitis vinifera also makes wine, no question. That's going to cover Pinot Noir, Prosecco, Cabernet, and a whole bunch of others. But did you know that the grape most commonly eaten as a snack, the Concord, is not the same species as the common wine grape? It's a variety of Vitis labrusca. That's okay though, it's still called a grape, so it still makes wine. Strangely, Vitis labrusca comes with some extra labeling rules, but it's still wine. But yeah, while Zinfandel and Pinot Grigio are as related as a poodle and a Dalmatian, Zinfandel and Concord are more like humans and Neanderthals. Who knew? Okay. I hear you. Enough with the grapes. What about strawberries? Well, they can be juiced, or musted. That must will ferment. Fermented things make alcohol. So, yes, it's a wine, but not wine. So, yes, asterisk. The authority on what is and is not wine in the United States is Title 27 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Chapter I, Subchapter A, Part 4, abbreviated as 27 CFR 4. In that, Rule 4.21 defines categories of wine. First up is grape wine. This is where the Zinfandel, Pinot Noir, etc. end up, as long as they aren't bubbly. As long as 75% of the liquid in the bottle comes from a single variety of grape, the wine can just be called the name of the variety of grape. So, Seven Deadly Zins just says Zinfandel. It doesn't need to say wine or grape wine. Theoretically, you can also have two names with percentages after them, like Zinfandel 60% and Cabernet 40%, before you just become generic red wine. And please don't blend across reds, whites, rosés, or ambers, because I couldn't figure out what the name would be. Presumably grape wine. The next category is called sparkling grape wine. That's grape wine, except you made it bubble with fermentation. Since we treat grape wine as the best wine, you can leave the word grape out or replace it with a color. This gives you sparkling grape wine, sparkling white wine, etc. The third group is called carbonated grape wine. If that sounds like sparkling to you, that's understandable. This is bubbly wine that got its bubbles by just having CO2 directly injected into it, or from any process other than from the secondary fermentation of the wine within a closed container, tank, or bottle. And, wait for it, fourth is fruit wine. That's wine made from, well, fruit. So long as the fruit wasn't a grape. Now, if only one kind of fruit is used, then that's that fruit wine. So here's where strawberry wine lives. Also cherry wine, blackberry wine, etc. If it's multiple kinds of fruit, then you might be citrus wine or berry wine, but if you don't fall into either of those special categories, you become generic fruit wine. Another pile of asterisks lives here, largely around apples and pears. The fifth category, for the curious, is called agricultural wine. This is where honey wine, also known as mead, and rice wine, which includes but is not limited to sake, get classified. And there are three more. You're welcome to look them up. Right. Wine derived from apples and or pears, so long as it's not too bubbly and has no more than 8.5% alcohol by volume, is allowed to be called, and more importantly, taxed as, cider. For my whole adult life, I have thought of hard apple cider as apple beer, but the US government instead thinks of it as apple wine. Weird. Speaking of beer, cereal grains are, botanically speaking, fruits. So why isn't beer wine? Let's just say because the cereal grains don't have juice. But if that's bugging you, that sounds like a simple question someone could ask. And now we can finally talk about the song. Matresa Berg has said in interviews that the product she had in mind when writing the song was Boone's Farm Strawberry Hill. Prior to 1991, this beverage seems to have been apple wine with natural strawberry flavor. The Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act of 1990, also known as Public Law 101-508, raised the tax rate on wine from 17 cents per gallon to $1.07. Several sources say that Boone's Farm products changed from a wine base to a malt beverage base at that time to keep costs down. In fact, several websites today have a description for this product like, Boone's Farm is a flavored malt beverage that originated as an apple wine product, bottled in California. But the picture associated with that text labels it instead as a flavored citrus wine. So maybe it went to a malt beverage base and then came back to wine? Of course, I also dug up images showing it as a grape wine with natural flavors, so maybe the specific product changes from year to year, or just market to market. Whether it's made with citrus wine now, or grape wine now, or apple wine back then, the fact that the label has to use weasel words means that the product itself isn't wine. And never has been. So there you have it. If a product is labeled just strawberry wine, it's wine. But the beverage from the song, Strawberry Wine, wasn't. But since it was being consumed by a 17-year-old, according to the lyrics, she probably wouldn't have found actual strawberry wine to be sweet enough. See you next time for another simple question and simple response.